mathematical foundations of the structures attest that its creators had a working knowledge of algebra, geometry, trigonometry, astronomical science, because they aligned these monuments with celestial bodies, mechanics, material science, and physics. Now, I'm getting ready to touch on the mechanics, material science, and physics, because they had to understand mechanics, material science, and physics in order to create a ramp system that would maneuver these 2-ton blocks. So now I'm getting ready to get into the building methods of Kemet and how they actually, how did they build these structures? Because again, Brother Sai, there's a lot of misinformation out there regarding this. People say that the aliens did it, that they weren't equipped to move 2-ton blocks. But that's a lie, family. That's a lie. So I'm getting ready to get into the building methods of Kemet and how they actually moved these 2-ton blocks or these 10-ton blocks. What you're looking at right here is a wall painting in the ancient tomb of Jehudi Hotep, which is dated to 1900 BCE. All right. So this right here is an actual facsimile of the wall painting. But let me give you a better view. So this is a cleaned up view of what you're looking at. This is a cleaned up view. And what it shows, it depicts 172 men hauling an immersed statue using ropes attached to a sledge. In the drawing, you can see a person. Brother Sal, look at this right here. Okay? So you have 172 men hauling a statue on a sled. And you have these men hauling it while this person is pouring something on the sand. You see that? Now, this picture was in a tomb, 1900 BCE. So this is giving archaeologists and scientists an idea as to how they maneuvered heavy materials. This paper is written in the physical review letters entitled Sliding Friction on Wet and Dry Sand. And what these authors did, this is a very, very powerful paper. Anyone who is interested in understanding how the Egyptians moved these 2-ton blocks should get this paper. It's again published in the Physical Review Letters. The publication date is May the 2nd, 2014. And the title is Sliding Friction on Wet and Dry Sand. So what they did, what these physicists did, was investigate the effect of different amounts of water on the sliding friction of a variety of sands by measuring the force necessary to pull the sled. So they were pouring water. The assertion is this, brother Sai, is that they were pouring water onto the sand to decrease the friction, which would allow them to pull a sled that was weighted down by a statue or a block. Okay, so what they did in this paper was this: they computed what's called a friction coefficient. A friction coefficient. What is friction? Friction is resistance. So they computed what's called a friction coefficient, and they computed something called a shear modulus. A shear modulus is a coefficient that measures the stiffness of a material. Okay, and what they saw was this, that the friction coefficient and the shear modulus are inversely proportional. And I'm getting ready to explain what the friction and the shear modulus is. So this is so in layman's terms, brother Sai, when you pour water onto the sand, capillary bridges, okay, liquid membranes created between two bodies. So when you pour water onto the sand, capillary bridges form. And when these capillary bridges form, that increases the shear modulus. When that increases the shear modulus, that decreases the friction, allowing you to pull something that's heavy. Now, if you pour too much water into the sand, the capillary bridges, they either merge or they fall apart. And if they fall apart, then you decrease the shear modulus, which in turn increases the friction coefficient. When you increase the friction coefficient, now it's harder to pull the sled or pull the heavy material. And that's what they found. So that's what I mean by the friction coefficient and the shear modulus are inversely proportional. So what you're looking at is a graph of what I just explained to you, the volume. So we're talking about the water, the volume versus the friction coefficient. So I want to demonstrate to you that as they pour water, the friction coefficient decreases and it's easier for them to pull. And you can see a graph. This is a physical depiction of that. This is a physical illustration of what I just said. Let's go over to 0. So at 0, this means you haven't poured any water. You haven't poured any water on the sand. If you notice, the friction coefficient is high, Brother Sai. So if the friction coefficient is high, that means the resistance is high. So that means that it's harder to pull whatever you need to pull. However, as you keep adding, if you keep pouring water on it, if you notice, the friction coefficient is doing what, Brother Sai? It's decreasing as you pour water on it. However, remember I said if you saturate the sand with it again, that increases the friction. So over here for this particular sand, because this is a graph displaying 3 different types of sand. So if you notice, all 3 sands follow the same pattern. As you add water, the friction coefficient decreases for all of them, but it gets to a point around here at 0.6 when all of them begin to increase again, meaning that the sand is saturated. In my previous slide, I said that the friction coefficient is the friction coefficient and shear modulus are inversely proportional to one another. And this graph is an illustration of what I just stated. You're looking at the shear modulus versus the friction coefficient. And as you can see, they do have an inverse relationship. If you look at the bottom of the shear modulus, when the shear modulus is low, the friction coefficient is high. When the shear modulus is high, the friction coefficient is low. So they do have an inverse relationship. And Brother Sai, I don't have this article. I briefly read it online. I'm actually in the process of downloading it. And I can't see it right here, but there's an article called The Eakley B. Cox Jr. Expedition Excavations at Medum, Egypt. And it's published in the Museum Journal, issue 22. And this paper was published in 1931. But in it, Brother Sai, and this is what's getting ready to kill you. In this paper, it states they did an excavation on a pyramid from 1900 BCE. And guess what they found, Brother Sai, on the pyramid? The names of the pyramid builders written in red ochre. Damn. So they found the names of the pyramid builders. So we can't say, Brother Sai, anymore that the aliens came to build the pyramids. Because if the aliens came to build the pyramids, would they have put their names in red ochre on the pyramids? So they had gangs, and that's what I want to explain to the people. There were gangs that they formed in order to move these limestone blocks. There were gangs. They worked in gangs to do this. And each gang actually wrote their name in red ochre on the pyramid blocks. So what am I saying to you, family? You can't tell me that the aliens did it, because where did red ochre come from? Where did that tradition come from? The tradition of writing things in red ochre, body painting yourself in red ochre and on your body, Brother Sai, that's an African tradition. That came right out of Africa. So, I mean, unless the aliens came from Africa or South Africa, it wasn't aliens that built the pyramids. So I want to direct your attention to this article called The Coast in Color. This article is describing Pinnacle Point. Pinnacle Point is located right here, south of Mossel Bay, near the Indian Ocean. So you're at the bottom of Africa, okay? Pinnacle Point was a cave that was occupied at the earliest 164,000 years ago. All right. So it was occupied in 165,000 years ago. It was occupied again 140,000 years ago. And then it was continuously occupied from 120,000 years to 90,000 years ago. And they found, shellfish remains of red pigment and stone bladelets. But this is the most important find right here, Brother Sai. They found 57 pieces of hematite, which is an iron ore that can be ground up to produce a blood red pigment called red ochre. So red ochre came out of the south, and the pyramid builders wrote their names in red ochre on the pyramid blocks. So if we had this information, see, Brother Sai, that's why it's important to study. If you understood that if you knew that they wrote their names in red ochre, and you understood that this tradition came from South Africa.
Hold on. I'm sorry, but I got to do this, man. This shit here is real scholarship right here. A lot of people ain't ready for this right here, what you showing. You know what I'm saying? Because I think you are going over a lot of people's heads right now. Only the advanced students is ready for this, like the Amin Ra squad. And there's a lot of smart people out there too. But I'm saying this work right here, what you putting in, this is not for the religious minds.
No.
They looking at you like, man, this girl is out of her damn mind. Where'd she get this from? But I'm looking at this like you proving everything that you showing up here right now. This is real scholarship. That's why I had to cut that.
Thank you so much, Brother Sai.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that, Brother Sai. I just don't want our people to be fooled.
Yeah.
You know? Now, these are the devices, Brother Sai. You got me fired up now, Brother Sai.
Yeah,
but these are the devices that they utilize to align the pyramids with the true north. Because remember, aliens were supposedly came down and showed us how to do it. It was simple, Brother Sai. What you're looking at right here is called a bay. It's called a bay, which is a sighting instrument. It's a forked stick, and it's used for alignments. All right? So this is a bay. Underneath the bay is something called a merket. Okay? And the merket was used as a surveying instrument. And notice at the end of the merket, you have something called a plumb bob. What is a plumb bob? A plumb bob is something you utilize to make sure that whatever you're building is truly vertical. All right. Now I want you to look at this, Brother Sai, for a second. The plumb bob. Mm-hmm. Let me show you where the plumb bob is used. Bear with me for 1 second, brothers and sisters. Bear with me for 1 second. Let me show you where the plumb bob is used. Ooh. If you look at the depiction of the weighing of the soul from the papyrus of Ani, what is Anubis or Anpu holding in his hand, Brother Sai? A plumb bob. So they were using plumb bobs to ensure that something was truly vertical. So this isn't spookery, Brother Sai. We got to stop with the aliens came down. We got to stop with the aliens. They were using a plumb bob. So when they were measuring the soul against the feather of my yacht, Anubis or Anpu wanted to ensure that the scale was truly vertical. So what did he use to do it? He used a plumb bob. And that's what they use when you look at the pyramids. The pyramids are truly vertical, but they use a plumb bob to ensure that. So let me go back.
To make sure it's level.
Oh, we can look. We can go in on some leveling. You, Brother Sai, you getting ready to do my presentation for me. But so I showed you a marquette. I want you to remember these: the marquette and the bay. So these instrumentations, these were devices that were available to them that they utilized to sight things and to ensure that something was truly vertical. So I want you to remember this because we getting ready to go in. This is another depiction of the merket with the plumb bob. I think you can kind of see it better here. So you have you have a horizontal ball and a bar, and from the horizontal bar you have the plumb bob hanging down. Okay. Now this photograph is courtesy of Science in Society Picture Library, and it's showing how they used the merket. Okay, so I just want to, I'm getting ready to go inside. So I just want you to note that you see one guy who has the marquette in his hand and he has the plumb bob hanging. And he also in his left arm, he has the marquette with the plumb bob. And in his right arm, he has the bay. So he's looking, he has a bay in his right arm. He's looking at whatever he's looking at, whatever star he's looking at. And he has a marquette to make sure that it's completely vertical. Right. Yeah, so he's aligning right now. And what he's doing is, you see these two observers? So he has somebody, he's telling them, okay, I have you in my line of sight, so you stand right here so we can mark this territory. And he has someone right here to mark this territory. So you have the observer and you have two other people to mark the territories. Now let's go in. Oh my goodness, this is a page that I took from I.E.S. Edwards. His book is called Pyramids of Egypt. What he says is this, and I want to read this, Brother Sai, because this is important. It says, since an observation of the true horizon would be precluded anywhere on land by irregularities, however slight in the ground, an artificial horizon would be required. Okay, so I want to stop right there with the true north. They had to create an artificial horizon, because trying to align it with the true horizon, you're going to see impediments. You're going to see obstructions. So they created an artificial horizon. Okay, it says this end could have been secured by building a circular wall with a diameter of a few feet on an already level red block of the pyramid. The height of the wall. Okay, so what they're saying is they already did the alignments and they built an artificial horizon. Okay, so now he's getting ready to describe this diagram. The height of the wall must be sufficient to prevent a person standing within the circle from seeing anything outside other than the sky, but subject to this single reservation, it should not be higher than such a person could reach. The reason why it couldn't be higher than a person could reach, because they wanted to mark the points. So what you have in it is an observer sitting right here. You have a person standing here and another person standing here. This person is going to mark the rising of the star, because remember, the star rises in the east. Remember, and it transverses the sky, and it sets over here, right in the west. So it travels from the east, and doesn't set. It travels from east to west. So you have an observer in the middle. You have a person standing right here, and when they see the rising of the star, when they see the star, they mark it on the wall here, and they mark it on the wall here. Okay, but that's just me talking. But okay, so where are we? Subject to the reservation. Okay, for the whole of its circumference, the top of the wall must be on an absolutely even plane, a requirement which again could easily have been attained by means of water. So it had to be even, Brother Sai. It says temporary mud banks on the inner and outer peripheries of the top surface, providing the support necessary to prevent the wall from flowing. The observation will be made by one person sighting over a perpendicular rod. This is the perpendicular rod. I don't mean to hit your television, Brother Sai. The perpendicular rod, or through the slot of the bay. I was just talking about the bay at the center of the circle. So there was somebody in the center of the circle with a bay. At the center of the circle, a second person standing within the circle would receive directions from, and at the moment when the star appeared above the wall, would place a mark or the marquette on the wall directly in line between the observer and the star. Brother Sai, you paying attention? Okay, so we're looking at P. So we're looking at P. So O is telling P, lowercase p, what to do. So where are we? This operation will first be performed towards the east. Remember I said it shows up in the east. Towards the east, and subsequently, some hours later, perhaps a second marquette towards the west. So we're looking at lowercase q. The same star being sighted on both occasions. If the marquette had not been invented at this period, a plumb line, which the Egyptians of the pyramid age are known to have possessed, would have been suspended from the two marks on the wall, and corresponding marks made on the ground at points perpendicular below. So they're making these points. So you have someone standing here marking when the when the star appears, and marking when it's getting ready to, set, or when it appears on the west. It says the first of these two, suspended the two marks corresponding on the ground. Okay, the first of these two operations would have been unnecessary if the marquette with a plumb line attached to the block were available to the pyramid builders. By bisecting the angle, and this is what they mean by bisecting the angle, Brother Sai. Look, so you have O standing here. They make a mark right here at P, a mark at Q. So this is an angle, you agree? So to bisect the angle is to cut it in half. If you cut it in half, Brother Sai. Okay, I'm sorry. If you cut it in half, what do you get? You get the true north. So Brother Sai, these were star watchers. These were stargazers that had sighting instrumentation. Look at this. They had sighting instrumentation, plumb lines available. And what they did was they observed when the star appeared above the rising, appeared above the horizon, and when it set below the horizon. It's no magic. It's no magic. This is exactly how they aligned things with the true north, or whatever they wanted to align things with. So it's not magic. It's not magic. Now, this is a more modern diagram of what I just described. As you can see, this is the artificial horizon, a circular wall, someone standing here with a sighting rod, which is the bay. And then you have two different people right here. They're watching the star rising and the star setting, and they bisected the angle. And that's how they got the true north. Easy. Easy. All this takes is this is just geometry. This is just geometry. This isn't any real sophisticated. It's nothing sophisticated about what they did. They watched the stars. They made markings, right? And from these markings, they were able to calculate what the north was. So right here, Brother Sai, these are other devices that were available to them. They had the cubic rod. This is called the cubic rod of Maya, which is in the Louvre Museum that dates back to the New Kingdom. So we wonder, where did they get rulers from? Okay? Where did rulers come from, right? Think of the word ruler, rule. This was called the cubic royal rod. Cubic royal. I didn't put it on my slide, but that is what it's called, the cubic royal rod. Royal, ruler. This is where the concept of the ruler came from. It came from us. This is located at the museum, the Louvre Museum. They found the cubic rule of Maya, and I'm going to get into that. Let me see. They found it in, I think, Saqqara. I want to say, yeah, they found it in Saqqara. So let me get into that. Let me get into the unit of length and how they measure things. The cubit was an average length of 52.5 centimeters. And Brother Sai, it was based on the forearm of a man. They measured things using their body parts. So the cubit was based on the forearm length from the middle finger tip to the elbow. So we're looking at right here, Brother Sai, from the tip of your middle finger to your elbow. Mm-hmm. This is how they measure things. All right. And this was used to measure objects in short distances. When the distances were long, they used rope. Okay. Now, let me get here. Okay. So this ruler, or this rod, was divided into 7 palms. Now, let me show you this. So they had a ruler. Let me go back. Okay, so let me show you this. So this rod was approximately 52.5 centimeters. And I'm going to get into how, if you see the little notches, it was broken down into 7 palms. And when I say palms, I'm saying this, Brother Sai. 7 palms, it measured the width of the palm. So you had 7 of these, measuring the width of your palm. So the palm is the breadth of the human hand without the thumb. Each palm is divided into 4 digits. So you're not measuring the thumb. It's divided into 4 digits. The digits is the breadth of the human finger. So we wonder where the inch came from, right? Where did the inch come from? The inch come from the digit from the cubic rod, the breadth of the human finger. So now each rod consists of 28 digits, and then the digits are further subdivided. This indicates a foot measure. It indicates a foot measure at the 18th digit, about 13¼ inches long. This is the origin, and I put in caps. This is the origin of the 12-inch foot. So even rulers, Brother Sai, they came from us. This is the cubic rod of Maya. It was found in the tomb of Maya, who was a royal treasure of King Tut and Herrenhab. And so you're looking at different faces. This is, again, found in the Louvre. And you're just looking at different angles of the rod, different angles. This is another cubic rod that was found in, I want to say, it says Deir el Medina in Thebes. This is in the Liverpool World Museum, Brother Sai, dated to the New Kingdom, 20th dynasty. This is another cubic rod that they found that's now in the British Museum, that's dated to the 3rd intermediate period, or the late pyramid, the late period. Now let me get to this, Brother Sai, which is an interesting find. The Egyptians may have been responsible for the world's oldest protractor. Now, we know when we use a protractor, we're trying to measure things. They use protractors in construction. But the world's oldest protractor was probably, this may be, because there's a lot of debate going on as to whether or not this is a protractor or it might be a decorative case. There's a lot of argument that whether or not this is the oldest protractor or whether this is a decorative case. This is found in a museum in Italy, and it is 3,500 years old. So the Egyptians may have been responsible for the world's oldest protractor. They found this protractor in Thebes. And it's dated to the 18th dynasty. It was found in the tomb of Ka, who was also an architect. So a lot of people talk about Imhotep, but you never hear them talk about Kai, who was actually responsible for building a lot of the tombs of the 18th dynasty rulers. But it's in a case in Italy. And if you look at it, a physicist by the name of Amelia, she actually analyzed it, and she said that it seems to be a 16-fold symmetry, looking as a compass rose with 16 leaves. And it says the fraction of 1/16 corresponding to one leaf. Outside of this rose, so you have 16, outside of this rose, you have a polygonal line of 18 corners pointing outwards and 18 corners pointing inwards, line with 36 corners. So 36 corners, when you think about 36, remember in Egypt, we had 36 deacons or decans, right? So Amelia believes that this is a protracted instrument with two scales, one based on Egyptian fractions, the others based on the deacons. All right. But then the counter argument was Kate Spence, who is an archaeologist at the University of Cambridge. She contends that it's just a decorative case. So she believes that it was just, declaration. It doesn't have any mathematical significance. However, you have people that are coming forth saying, no, this does have mathematical significance. And if it does, then that means that Egypt was responsible for the production of the first protractor. So let me quickly go through this. The mathematical papyri of Kemet. Now we're getting there, family. Bear with me. We're getting there. So the mathematical papyrus scrolls are as such. You have the Moscow, the Rhines, the Berlin 6619. Brother Sai, these are the oldest mathematical documents in the world. Most of them written in hieratic, the oldest mathematical documentations in the world. So what you're looking at is a depiction of the Moscow papyrus that is located in the Pushkin State Museum of Fine Arts in Moscow, and is dated approximately 1850 BCE. So we're looking at the Middle Kingdom, and it contains, Brother Sai, 25 problems, mostly in geometry. So I showed you structures that were built using mathematical concepts. So in order to build these structures, you did have to understand geometry. But this is a written document with problems that demonstrate the Egyptians' ability to solve geometry problems. So it's one thing to build a structure and say, oh, I think they knew geometry. But it's another thing to show a mathematical document where they're solving problems in geometry. Okay, and this one consists of 25 problems. Now you're looking at the Rhines papyrus, and this is the papyrus. Remember, in the beginning of the presentation, I had translated the first line of the papyrus for you. So you're looking at the Rhines papyrus, and this is on display at the British Museum. And they believe that the scribe Amos produced this, and it's dated approximately 1550 BC. And it contains 84 tables of division, multiplication, and handling of fractions in geometry. They said that this is the most extensive mathematical papyri that exists. All right. And again, remember the introductory sentence of the Rhines papyrus, Shinganti Diop interpreted to be laws to study nature and to understand all that exists, each mystery, each secret. But remember, I gave you the translation earlier with Brother Wajaru, that is the correct method to investigate nature, all that exists, each secret, each mystery. So this is the elders' work. Sheikh Auntie Diop, and you see I carry it with me, Brother Sai. I'm going to show it to you. I love this book. I recommend anyone who is interested in understanding the mathematics of the Egyptians or the people of Kemet. I recommend that they read this book. I don't know if you can see this, Brother Sai, but look, Brother Sai, I got markings all through the book, markings all through the book. So I actually scrutinized his work thoroughly. And I'm a big fan of Sheikh Auntie Diop, the elder, the ancestor. But he did make, a few errors in his book, and I like to correct that while I have the ear of the people. I love chapter 16. It's a powerful chapter that speaks about Africa's contribution to sciences, and it covers select problems from various mathematical and medical papyri. So I want to give clarity to anybody who has the book or is interested in purchasing the book. I want to give clarity on problems 30 to 34, and it's actually on page 273 of the elder's book. The problem reads as such, Brother Sai. 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number is equal 10. 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number equals 10. What is it? He says in his statement, he says immediately the equation is written as, and he has in parentheses 2/3 plus 1/10. All of this multiplied by x equals 10. And I said this is my correction or revision or clarity. This would be true if it read the sum of 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number is equal to 10. But it doesn't. It just says 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number is equal to 10. So it really could be interpreted as 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number, which is x equal to 10. So if the elder really meant for this equation to be expressed, then he should have put that the sum of 2/3 plus 1/10 of a number is equal to 10. So then he would be correct if he added the sum of. Now, I don't know, Brother Sai. This may have been due to translation. It may have been a translation error, and maybe that's why. And that's why the Arm and Rod Squad, we're getting ready to translate all of the mathematical papyri. And we're going to translate it. We're going to list each problem in the Medjunetta. Under the problem, you'll have the English version, and then we're going to solve all of the problems. So that's a masterful publication that we're working on right now. So I'll be able to see if the elder was wrong because whoever solved the problem for him, or if he solved the problem, if they didn't understand it, or if it was due to translation. So we're getting ready to figure that out. I also wanted to discuss that on page 66 of his work, he stated that the value of pi extracted from the Egyptian formula is 3.1605. He mentions it not only on page 266, but he also mentions it on page 243. But Brother Sai, we know that this is erroneous. We know that the Egyptians calculated pi to be 3.1428. So for the elder to say that they calculated to be 3.1605 is incorrect. All right. This is the Berlin Papyrus, and what you're looking at is someone reconstructed it. They reconstructed it based on readable fragments that were reproduced in the 1900s by a German gentleman. And this is dated to the Middle Kingdom. And it consisted of problems that dealt with square numbers. And it gave evidence of the knowledge of the properties of the Pythagorean triplets. It also had problems in there where the Egyptians, showing that the people of Kemet solved a system of two equations. So I do want to discuss another issue that I had with chapter 16. On page 271, it says it discusses two problems in the Berlin Papyrus that deal with solving simultaneous equations. And I just want to provide the listeners and viewers with some clarity and correction on problem number 2. Problem 2 reads as such: how to divide 100 into two parts so that the square root of one of them is that of the other. The solution of the scribe is rigorously correct. And these are his words. The solution of the scribe is rigorously correct. In modern symbols we have